All right, folks. And no commercials here, so we're back. So far we discussed in the first 20 minutes or so, we just talked about funding education and what to do with the illegals. Folks, I could do an entire hour on that, as well as many other things. So there's so much more we have to get to. But before we go any further, just want to do a little bit of flashback. I know people do Throwback Thursdays, so maybe tomorrow we'll do a throwback. But I think we all need a little spot of humor to kind of help us carry us to the end of the week. So let's remember one of our presidents, one that was near and dear to my heart, back from the 1980s. We had Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan was a great leader, but at the same time, he knew how to handle things with a little leadership attribute called humor. So let's listen to some of that.
You've heard, I'm sure, that I like to tell an anecdote or two. Well, life not only begins at 40, so does lumbago and the tendency to tell the same stories over and over again.
His talent at telling those stories was widely admired, even by his adversaries. And he seemed to have one for every occasion.
Governor Reagan, I now declare you to be duly installed as governor of the state of California.
Jack Warner of Warner Brothers, I'd been under contract for a number of years, heard that I was running for governor. I understood that he said, no, Jimmy Stewart for governor, Ronald Reagan for best friend.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear that I
Howard Baker told me on the steps of the Capitol at the time of the inaugural, he said, Mr. President, I want you to know I will be with you through thick. And I said, what about thin? He said, welcome to Washington.
He was a master at the art of wit as weapon. With a sly, well-timed comeback, he could disarm even the press.
Mr. President, in talking about the continuing recession tonight, you have blamed mistakes of the past, and you have blamed the Congress. Does any of the blame belong to you?
Yes, because for many years I was a Democrat.
His wit rivaled that of his two idols, Franklin Roosevelt and Abraham Lincoln.
He liked to laugh, President Lincoln. As a matter of fact, he was criticized for it once, and he said, if I couldn't laugh, I couldn't stand this job for 15 minutes.
Reagan clearly relished the job, missing no opportunity to joke about his favorite targets: communism, big government, high taxes.
If the big spenders get their way, they'll charge everything on your taxpayer's express card, and believe me, they never leave home without it. And if his campaign were a Broadway show, it would be promises, promises.
He won friends and votes by turning his opponent's punches into punchlines.
I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit, for political purposes, my opponent's youth and inexperience.
He exploited his own age to a fare thee well. On that subject, he was happy to aim jokes squarely at himself.
One of my favorite quotations about age comes from Thomas Jefferson. He said that we should never judge a president by his age, only by his work. And ever since he told me that, I've stopped worrying. Just show you how youthful I am, I intend to campaign in all 13 states. I've already lived about 20 years longer than my life expectancy at the time I was born. That's a source of annoyance to a great many people.
When things annoyed him, he often used a laugh line to get in his digs.
I was going to have an opening statement, but I decided that what I was going to say, I wanted to get a lot of attention, so I'm going to wait and leak it. So
he quickly gained a reputation as the Teflon president, to whom bad news didn't stick. His ability to charm almost any crowd helped keep his popularity high.
Now, I've been told that this is all off the record and that the cameras are all off. Is that right? Huh? I was told that because I've been waiting years to do this.
In the Reagan joke book, the nation's capital was always good for a laugh.
You know, you don't have to spend much time in Washington to appreciate the prophetic vision of the man who designed all the streets there, they go in circles.
But he also enjoyed slinging barbs at certain other world capitals, particularly Moscow and Havana.
It is said that Castro was making a speech to a large assembly, and he was going on at great length, and then a voice out in the crowd said, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack." And he went on speaking, and again the voice said, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack." And about the fourth time this happened, he stopped in his regular speech, and he said, the next time he says that, he says, "I'm going to find out who he is and kick him all the way to Miami." And everybody in the crowd said, "Peanuts, popcorn, Cracker Jack."
He would live to see the walls come down all across the world, a process no doubt hastened along by his relentless mockery of communism as something both barbaric and laughable.
The commissar in the Soviet Union who went out to one of those state collective farms, grabbed the first worker he came to, said, "How are the crops?" "Oh," he said, "the crops never have been better, just wonderful." He said, "How about potatoes?" "Oh," he said, "Comrade Commissar, if we could put the potatoes in one pile, they would reach the foot of God." And the commissar said, "This is the Soviet Union. There is no God." He said, "That's all right. There are no potatoes."
For 8 years, humor was a key part of the presidential performance. As his term of office came to an end, it was Ronald Reagan's nature to leave him laughing.
As soon as I get home to California, I plan to lean back, kick up my feet, and take a long nap. I'll come to think of it, things won't be all that different after all.
I certainly hope that those of you that remember those days look back at some of those quips with fond memories and gave a chuckle. And those of you who heard some of those for the first time, whether you were just too young or not yet born or blissfully ignorant of some of those events and clips coming from President Reagan, and you heard those for the first time, that it brought a smile to your face and a chuckle to your heart. Always good to bring about a little spot of humor. But as I mentioned, this is hump day, and for the military that means putting your pack on your back and going for a long walk. Or should, because otherwise hump day is a different day of the week. I digress. But it's about time to bring up some military news about things that are going on with the military and then again, our wonderful Veterans Administration, or Veterans Affairs Department on the federal level. And for those of you so inclined to swing over to the Daily Caller, Patrick Howley put up a good article here. And he kind of alleges strongly, with quite a bit of background data that supports his statements, that the VA lied and has continued to lie to Congress and to the investigators during this whole scandal. And he brings about, let me get the exact count here, 5 big lies, 5 big, categories where they lied. And the first one is that the VA lied about the causes of veteran deaths in Pittsburgh. And the article states that the VA acting Undersecretary for Health, Robert Jesse, lied about the cause of Legionnaire's disease outbreak that killed a bunch of veterans in Pittsburgh. And a letter from Representative Miller stated that during your February 2013 testimony to this committee, you stated that the Pittsburgh VA healthcare system copper-silver ionization system may have failed to consistently prevent Legionella growth. Further, as recently as March of 2013, VA Pittsburgh Healthcare System Director and Chief Executive Terry Garrick Wolf was quoted in the press blaming VA Pittsburgh's copper-silver ionization system for the Legionnaire's disease outbreak. However, a December 2012 internal VA report, which was ordered by former VA Undersecretary Robert Petzel, folks, you remember him, he's the one that resigned in defeat. Not really. Basically, he started his retirement vacation early. But anyway, and distributed to top VA central office officials, found that human error, not faulty equipment, led to the VA Pittsburgh healthcare system Legionnaire's disease outbreak. Wow. The second lie in the article that's alleged is they lied about falsifying the records in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania Representative Patrick Meehan said VA officials looked me in the eye and lied to me about record falsification at 2 VA health sites in Pennsylvania, including one in Philadelphia. Meehan said in July 2014, I visited these facilities and I was repeatedly assured that the activities described in this report had not occurred. I very specifically asked whether there was any evidence of deliberate falsification of data, manipulation of appointment dates, or any other attempts to intentionally cook the books. The VA leadership present told me none of it occurred. This report proves that they looked me in the eye and lied to me. At every turn, the VA has thwarted any attempt of honest, effective oversight. The basis of any relationship is trust, but the misrepresentations made by the VA in Philadelphia have demonstrated a culture of cover-up and deceit. I expected the VA to identify those responsible. They should lose their positions of trust within the VA bureaucracy. Well, Rep. Meehan, it should be a little bit more than their positions of trust within the bureaucracy. They probably should be going to jail. That's just my 2 cents as a veteran who's been screwed over by the VA system. Not that I am vindictive at all. I know it's certain individuals within the corrupt system. Anyway, lie number 3. A top official lied about background checks. And again, Representative Miller wrote a letter to the acting secretary, or now former acting secretary, since there's a new VA secretary, but the one that replaced Shinseki temporarily, Mr. Sloan Gibson. And the letter detailed lies made by healthcare officials on employee background checks. It has come to my attention that Sheila Cullen, the director of the VA Sierra Pacific Network, which consists of 50 sites of care serving over 1 million veterans, lied multiple times on federal background checks and the applications for promotion regarding her employment at the Department of Veterans Affairs. So they lied. That would be like one of our intelligence analysts in the Army flat out lying on their request for clearance. And that brings about a whole bunch of charges to include suspicion of treason, folks, and espionage. So think about that. So here's somebody who works for the VA system who's willing to lie about their background. Corruption much? Plans to be a criminal? Lie number 4. Dishonest about wait times in the Pacific Island system. So in a June letter from Democrat Representative Tulsi Gabbard to Sloan Gibson, claimed dishonesty on the part of Wayne Pfeffer, who's in charge there of the Pacific Islands branch of the VA. The VA PHCS leadership recently provided information to me on a new enrollee. wait times and implementation of the Accelerated Access to Care Initiative in the PIHCS. The information responses I received from Mr. Fucker, a man with 40 years of VA service, were dishonest, lacked transparency, and showed a level of incompetence that should not exist in the VA. Couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Gabbard. Of course, folks, that's me doing voices. I can't really do accurate imitations, so I'm just trying to make it interesting. Anyway, without further ado, lie 5. They lied about firing the employees in Alabama. Folks, it's just not just Alabama, it's other places. The corrupt employees were reported as fired. They were placed on administrative leave, where they still receive a form of income until their final disposition is granted. Look, if a VA worker is at the job for more than 2 years, they've gone completely through the probationary period, they now are tenured, and they're entered into the public service union, at which point it is damn near impossible to fire them. You can remove them from position, but you can't demote them and can't take away their paycheck or many of their other benefits. Well, you can't. It just takes a long time. So if somebody does something criminal and should be fired right on the spot, it might be 2 years before that final termination is determined. Anyway, lie number 5 about the firing of employees in Alabama. The Alabama Veterans Healthcare System Director, James Tolton, told Representative Martha Roby that employees who falsified records to cover up long patient wait times were fired. But a report in June 2014 rather, about 2 months ago, said that the employees were not fired. In other words, they're on administrative leave. And Roby was misled. I have now learned that wasn't true. No one has been fired. That means the employees responsible for falsifying waitlist records are still working at the VA in Alabama, Roby said in a statement. Director Talton apologized for what he called a misunderstanding over him repeatedly saying employees had been relieved of their duties. However, the unmistakable tenor of Friday's conversation and his failure to correct the record after 3 days of saturating news coverage tell me that this wasn't a misunderstanding at all. I believe I was misled. No, Roby, you were flat out lied to. Just like the veterans get flat out lied to. Just like a gentleman up that I know who lives up near Austin was lied to when he was told that he would be getting some antibiotics for a very bad infection that he had. 30 days later, the antibiotics still hadn't arrived, and when he called to check on it for the upteenth time, he was told that the nurse decided not to enter the prescription into the system. Yeah, the nurse decided to go against what the doctor had ordered and not get this guy life-saving antibiotics. And he almost died because of it. And that wasn't his only issue. But if you go over and look through over on Mental Aikido on my own site, that's pg-matuszak.blogspot.com, you'll see that I have that article posted over there on the talking about how the VA almost has actually sentenced this man to death, or made an attempt to. So that's the latest on the VA, and I still have to peruse some of the articles, and they're a little bit dated now, but the latest VFW magazine also has a whole bunch of stuff regarding issues with the VA. So those of you who are veterans and members of the VFW, if you're getting your magazine, go ahead and take a look at that. So there's some interesting things in there for you to consider if you get you caught up on what's going on with that. Other military news. okay